G'day, investors, and welcome to another episode of Stocks to Watch. My name's John Franklin, an experienced exploration geo and your host. Today, we're taking a dive into Arctic minerals, a Stockholm listed copper explorer with properties across Sweden, Norway, and Finland. Today, I'm joined with their executive director, Peter George. Pete, how you doing today, mate?
Yeah, good, John. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. It's good to be talking again. And previously, we've spoken about your flagship deposit, which is the Hennes Bay kind of SSC style, which has already got a resource wrapped around it and it's moving along. However, you've recently started some work on your Swan Lake copper gold project up in northern Sweden. Before we get into the details, can you just give viewers a quick overview of the project and kind of the significance of the location?
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Yeah, thanks, John. Look, this is a project that we have been looking at for a couple of years now, along with the Hennes Bay, but it's an important part of our well-balanced portfolio, as we like to call it. Yes, it is very early days, greenfields exploration, but it sits in between two of probably the most important copper gold porphyry projects in Sweden, if not Europe today, being the famous ARCT mine, which of course is in production, and the lava project, which has recently received its mining permits, I believe. And we've picked some prime real estate that sits smack bang in the middle of these two. And I'm not a geologist, so I'm not going to insult the geologist out there by talking too much about what we have there. But I guess basically, even from a nearology point of view, it's you have a look at the big copper porphyry systems around the world. Where do you find a brand new copper porphyry? And it's right next door to existing ones.
Absolutely, yeah. You hit the nail on the head there. The porphyry systems rarely occur by themselves, and if we were just to take a look over at South America, I mean, across Peru and everywhere, you never see one system with nothing following around it. So it's very interesting to see that that's how it's been viewed up until now. Very exciting upside. Now,
Yeah.
there's there's a potential for two types of mineralization there as well, which provides a bit further upside. Epithermal kind of gold, silver, as well as the porphyry copper gold. So
Mm.
what's key difference just in a layman's terms as far as grade potential and tonnage potential between these two?
Yeah, well, look, I guess you get a two for the price of one in these tile systems that you have here, and within our, I think you've got some diagrams there that you might be able to bring up. We've done some significant work over the last couple of years with the mag survey that's been done. I think we've done some soil testing, and we've also done a significant amount of grab sample testing. So, we can see the very similar grades in the grab samples to what we see in ATIC and lava, the 0.2 to 0.4 or even up to 0.7% copper in grab samples, up to 55 parts per million or grams per ton of silver. And we're also seeing the gold kicking around and a few other important metals. See the epithermal gold target, that will be high grade gold systems. I mean, perhaps, Jonathan, you know better than I the types of systems in Sweden to compare those two, but it gives us an optionality with these styles of project to get in and get some high grade gold mining up front, whilst we develop the potential upside on the much larger volume copper, silver, gold style mineralization as we go forward.
Yeah, and just for viewers who aren't aware of the ATIC system, which is what we just mentioned, which is just spitting distance away, that's the largest copper porphyry mine in all of Europe. So yeah, just to provide some background as far as the scale of the beasts up in this area. So
Hmm.
what signs have you seen so far to suggest that these mineral systems are present? You said you had some rock chip samples, you've done some magnetics. Kind of what's the next step to prove up this system?
Yeah, well, we have an IP survey planned. Hopefully that will be done before the end of the year. And I guess, this is another style of geophysics which is very well utilized around the world, especially in Sweden, just for working out the conductivity between areas underground, which should give us a good, what we're hoping to see is that combined with the mag geophysical data that we have, will give us very good drilling targets for underground, and when we can get in and get started there, hopefully into the new year.
Fantastic. And if we just shift over to kind of copper's had a lot of the spotlight lately in Europe because it got announced as a critical raw material last year. What what would finding a new copper porphyry system up in Sweden be for the country and the Nordics in general?
Yeah, well, look, I think it's, and I talk about this quite a bit, but Europe itself, we're importing around about 50% of our copper concentrates into the EU from countries such as Chile, as an example. It's over 12,000 kilometers away by boat. And 50% copper concentrate, or a copper concentrate by definition is between 20 and 30% metal content. So in other words, we're actually importing 70 to 80% rubbish from other countries. So, and a lot of this was done in the last 50 years of, that's a whole master's thesis just about talking about the reasons why Sweden and the Nordics are so underexplored. But in essence, we've been quite prepared as Europeans and Swedes to allow a lot of that, I guess, mining capabilities to go overseas, to countries such as South America, and a lot of it in the name of protecting the environment. But I think that's a little bit naive in some respects, because we're buying metals from countries which don't necessarily have the same level of environmental compliance as what we have in countries such as Sweden. So, I think that's probably being recognised quite well, at least politically and within the local populace nowadays, to the point where the questions are seriously being asked as to why can't we be pushing and developing our own projects up here in the Nordics. And this is a classic example of I think if these sorts of opportunities had have been in other countries around the world, they probably would have had a significant amount of drilling put into them already today.
I'm in complete agreement. Yeah, there's a myriad reasons why this is the last frontier in my mind as well. So, as in wrapping it up, every project has its challenges. What hurdles do you expect, and how are you planning to overcome them with your Swedish assets?
Yeah, look, Sweden is a tier one mining jurisdiction, and that means it's up in a par with other tier one jurisdictions like Australia, Canada, the USA, and that basically means that the demands on exploration companies and mining companies, they don't go any higher than this. So that means that you have to do all of your technical work to a very, very high standard, and to be able to investigate what you are dealing with from a flora and fauna and a cultural perspective on a local basis, and then try to understand, like, well, if we actually do turn something into a mining operation here, we have to understand what potential impacts that we could have on all of those background I guess investigations into the, like I said, the culture, the flora, the fauna, and all of those sorts of things. So it's not impossible to get these projects up and running, but it does require a high level of competence. And we have that high level of competence within ARCT and also with suppliers that are supporting us.
And speaking of the team, I understand you've got a really strong team. You've got Erik Lundstam as a geologist. You've got Lars-Erik Aro, who's got a very long history, and yourself. Could you give a bit of the background of the team and why they fit this bill?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I'll talk about Erik first. So Erik, I think he spent about 17 years working for Boliden. So he was one of their chief geologists on the exploration side. I think he had half a dozen discoveries in his own right working for Boliden. So and on top of that, just a fantastic individual to work with. You got Lars-Erik. He during my time in Boliden, he was one of the senior executives there, and then of course he went on to become CEO for LKB, the large Swedish miner. And myself, my experience with Sweden goes all the way back to the 90s, where I ran a number of the bigger projects for Boliden. And then of course we supplement that with the likes of a couple of other gentlemen within our team, such as Peter Walker and Krista Söder. These guys were instrumental in the discovery and development of Kevitsa, which of course got sold on to First Quantum and then on to Bulletin itself. So, an awful lot of experience in finding high value exploration projects and developing those into production.
As they say, it's just as much about the team as it is the assets. So it sounds like you've got all the boxes ticked there, Pete. So it was great catching up with you again. In summary, do you just want to give investors 3 reasons why they should invest in Arctic minerals now?
Look, 3 reasons. Look, I think, I guess I've already spoken a little bit about, the team, the assets that we have. We have a very strong, balanced portfolio. But I think that, on top of that, that you've got the copper and the silver market and the gold market for that matter. I mean, these metals are all either approaching or are at all-time highs. You are seeing share price growth in a number of the producers, but it's yet to sort of flow down into the explorer side of the business. But that will come soon. I think that the market has been somewhat subdued given what's been happening with the USA putting tariffs on the rest of the world, and a lot of investors are sort of sitting on the sideline, holding on to cash, not really knowing whether they should invest or not. But that's not going to stay that way forever. So I think we have seen our share price come off the boil a bit in recent times because of all the reasons I've just mentioned. I think that just provides an amazing opportunity for experienced and inexperienced generalist investors to jump on board a company which we hope to be able to come up with a multi-bagger as we move into the near future.
Very exciting, Pete. Yeah, well, looking forward to following the progress from here, and talk to you again soon.
Yeah, good on you, John. Thanks for that.